want to talk about damage.
Yeah.
Damage, dying, killing, and guns.
Fantastic. Let's see.
It's like this wall in my rules, and I keep I get up to it, and I'm like, I'm great, and then the wall appears. I'm like, oh no.
Oh yeah, let's go talk about something else.
Hard.
Right. Let's go design parts. Let's go design an easy part.
Yeah.
So the thing to do, I've always found with these things, is to sequence backwards.
Yep.
So what is the ultimate and worst thing that could happen to a player character? Keeping in mind that the source material that we're talking about varies a lot.
Yes.
So
there's two answers to that question. One is you die, right? That's pretty easy. The other one is somebody close to you dies.
Well, I'm going to back up a little bit on the first one, because if I'm thinking about the death of the equivalent of player characters in these films that I'm thinking of, one of the things about them is the unexpected quality of the deaths. The two that come instantly to mind, we've talked about them already, are in the first A Better Tomorrow, and then also in To Live and Die in L.A.
Right.
Both of those deaths are just jaw-dropping from the filmgoer's point of view. That's not supposed to happen. It's like,
it was shocking when I saw Live and Die in L.A. I was like,
exactly. They're both. It's impossible today, but back in the 90s, when American audiences were watching A Better Tomorrow for the first time, and saying things like, "Wow, that actor's really good," and stuff like that. They you can feel. The whole theater would just the bottom would drop out of the theater at that moment in the movie, and so I think that's one consideration. And bearing in mind that in the Burke novels, to my knowledge, I don't think any of the core, the team, I don't think any of them die.
Well, one definitely does.
At the end or toward the very end, right?
It's kind of the plot. It happens right at the beginning of Dead and Gone. This one, it's why Burke has a tattoo on his hand. Why he has one tattoo.
Okay.
And the other one, I think another character, he gets in a rough patch, and for a while you think he's dead or going to die. But
that's
then
what I thought, yeah, I can't actually. Of course, you're talking about the later.
I don't want to spoil it,
and I don't have my memory for the later books is poor.
It's an unconventional member of the team. Let's just say.
Yeah.
The one who dies.
Right.
But anyway, it would not be a player character who would. In my.
Okay, so that's an important point. Anyway, in the case of the
practically a player character.
Right. Well, depends. But okay, we're going to talk about the player characters.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing I would say is that the death and the death is a pivotal. In all the cases, it is absolutely pivotal. The character their absence is a
well, it's at the end.
It's at the
both
end,
of them, right?
Both of them, but not the end.
Right.
So it's not the reason I picked those two films in particular. One is the unexpected quality. Two is that this whole story flips and changes, at that point, and characters make critical decisions afterward. In other words, it's not like that's the climax and then the death is part of the, of the denouement, the way it turns out. It's like, no, that's still rising action. That's still up. And then the new conditions. There isn't much in the movie left, but the critical decisions made after that are still very much up in the air.
I have to rewatch both. One I haven't seen in forever, and the other I just watch again.
Yeah. So in the case of the game, therefore, we're in a sort of situation. The aesthetic experience of having your character die like that is an interesting one. In many ways, it almost begs to be involuntary. not one of those things of, oh well, your all of your red counters have moved into this circle on your character sheet. Choose
Yeah.
whether your character lives or dies. We're
Yeah.
not talking about that. We're talking about staring at the sheet and staring at the
Right.
text and going, and everybody else doing the same. That's not
Right.
supposed to happen.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I don't want a story game where it's like, well, it seems like my character would die in the scene. It's
Right,
like, no,
exactly.
you shouldn't get to choose. Otherwise,
No, it's a different kind of game we're talking about. Yeah.
I don't mind having a phase of the game where death is on the line or off the line, which is like the story circle stuff.
Right. That
You
exactly.
move
That's
into the
making more
danger zone.
sense. There's
It's like
something-
inspectors.
There's
that
something
way.
in Julia Ellingbo's game Steal Away Jordan. Now, I'm not raising this as precisely right, but it is a really, really interesting mechanic. There are situations when you roll, and I think it's in a lot of them, where the death die, and I can't remember if you have to like bring in the death die voluntarily or whether it's just circumstantial.
Yeah,
But
I remember that.
Yeah, the death die's like just got a skull on it, and
Yep.
and the point is you just roll it with the rest of your dice in resolution, and if it comes up with a skull, you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember it working frighteningly well as a mechanic. I mean, we were playing, and everybody was like, "Wow, these are really, really good death rules. I get this."
For that game.
For that game. Right. But that's why I'm bringing it up as like, okay, these are the kind of mechanics we're talking about. Something of that, of that nature.
So the version that you have, which is, of course, out of date by a year, but the version that you have, I have the concept of, so the rolls are, usually you roll a bunch of dice, you look for the best one, you use that,
right,
or the second best one if it's available. For the death and fatality and injury rules, it's all you roll a bunch of dice based on the severity of X, and you go for the lowest one. And then based on that roll, if you're going to die, then it's more rolling and don't get ones, because if you get ones, you're dead.
Possibly.
So it is kind of it's a similar where it's random. It's a little chaotic, and it can definitely, it's not just like a static roll. Like it can get worse. There's various degrees of severity where it's like, yeah, there's a 16% chance you'll die, or there's a 88% chance.
There's something like that in the Fallout rules of Dogs in the Vineyard.
Yep.
Where you've accumulated fallout, and now you have to roll your fallout, against something or whatever. There's a series that you go through. Now, the only thing that I found, what's the word I want? The thing I found a little bit onerous, if that's the right word, or a criticism, I could say. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't work in a Dogs in the Vineyard. What I'm saying is that it is something that bears attention. It's pretty attenuated, right? You got to do this, and then you got to go do this, and you got to do. It's very much a subroutine, really, very much a subroutine, and it doesn't have the kind of, oh shit, it just happened.
Yeah. Right now I have a subroutine.
It happened, and so that's why I bring up the death die, because that has kind of the the chilling,
I want something more immediate. I want something more immediate. I don't want something the player can wiggle out of.
Right.
I don't want it to be necessarily final. I want there to be a chance for there's
an interesting point there.
Heroic action.
Yeah.
And I want it to be gated so that it's not going to happen. I don't want it to happen in the second scene. That's just
exactly right. I mean, I completely see that, and it's a very interesting question about whether it's sort of a game master moment of, okay, here's my death card sitting next to me the whole game, nicely face down. All right, guys, the death card, flip up, right? Is that what we do? I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but that's a way, right? That's the gate, right?
Yeah, that's very Nerves of Steel kind of idea.
Yeah, and so there's I remember that, and so if there's that's a possibility. The interesting thing about the death die, to keep going back to that I think we all liked a lot, is that die is just completely separate from all the other dice.
Right.
There's nothing, there's no strategizing about the other dice, nothing about the rest of the system. period.